Question 12 of BPP revision kit. So this question discusses about real option, its limitations, why it is limitations. We can also use Black-Scholes model to value real options. There are four types of real options: option to delay, option to redeploy, option to expand, and option to abandon. So we are going to discuss all these four here. This is a theory question on real options, its limitations, and also we are going to learn how the option value changes based on the Greeks, right? There are five components how an option value changes. One of them is Vega. So we are going to discuss how Vega is going to change the value of an option. And also we are going to discuss how option can be used to value equity, how to assess default risk and the financial distress and the time value of an option, and how option can be used in investment decision. So all this we are going to cover in this question. So the question is, the chief executive officer of Faoilean company has just returned from a discussion at a leading university on the application of options, right, to investment decisions and corporate value. She wants to understand how some of the ideas which were discussed can be applied to decisions made at the company. She's still a little unclear about some of the discussions on options and their applications and wants further clarifications on the following. So number one, number two, number three. For each, there are different requirements, right? First one says that the company is involved in the exploration and the extraction of oil and gas. Recently, there have been indications that there could be significant deposits of oil and gas just off the shore of the Republic of Ireland. The company of the Republic of Ireland has invited companies to submit bids for the rights to commence the initial exploration on the area to assess the likelihood and amount of gas and oil deposits, which with further extraction rights to follow. So they are not extracting; they are giving the rights. It's like an option, real option, right? You can see that there's a real option. Following company is considering putting in a bid for the rights. The speaker leading the discussion suggested that using option as an investment assessment tool would be particularly useful to the company in this respect. So they are saying that if you are using option as an investment assessment tool, it will be very useful. We have to discuss why it will be useful, right? The second one, the speaker further suggested that options were useful in determining the value of equity and default risk. So you can see under one requirement there are many parts. First, determining the value of equity. Second, you are getting marks to assess the default risk. Then, and suggested that this is why companies facing severe financial distress could still have a positive equity value. Then we are going to talk about the financial distress and the time value, because you know that option has two values. One is intrinsic value, the other one is time value. Next, towards the end of the discussion, the speaker suggested that changes in the values of the option can be measured in terms of number of risk factors known as GRICs, such as the Vega. So in your exam, you don't have to memorize it, or you don't have to learn all the Greeks. It's better just read it once for your understanding. But mostly the Greek, out of the five Greeks which is coming is delta. So focus on delta and delta hedging, because that is the thing which will come for your exam. About the other four, rho, Vega, theta, those things you can just read through and have an understanding. That's it. So the C, because this is a very past paper, so there they asked Vega, right? But you will not get Vega in your exam. So the CU is unclear why option values are affected by so many different risk factors. So now let's see the requirements with regard to I. So you can see A is for I, B is for second one, C is for the third statement. So with regard to the above, discuss how the company may use the idea of options to help with the investment decision and bidding for the exploration rights. So this is the first part. You can see this requirement is divided into two parts. First, how option can be used as an investment tool. Second, explain the assumptions made when using the idea of options in making investment decisions. There are some assumptions. You have to explain those assumptions when you're using option for valuing investment decisions. What are those assumptions? Basically, these are the options or assumptions of Black-Scholes model. Right? Those are the assumptions they are talking about. And we have done question 11 also, where we talked about the 5 limitations of Black-Scholes model. If you have checked my video on question 11 where I solved it, from there part B, you can take those option limitations also, right? Limitations of Black-Scholes model. B, with regard to second, discuss how options could be useful in determining the value of equity and default risk. So two, they are separate. Okay, you are not getting marks for both. You are getting separate marks for equity, separate marks for default risk and financial distress. How the companies who are facing financial distress, still they have a positive equity value. right? All these are theory, all these are from your textbook. So make sure that you read the textbook on this part, because this in this part you can only expect theory questions. You will not get numbers. So you have to read your theory. It is just copy pasted. When I went through the answers, it's just copy pasted from your textbook. And C, with regard to third above, that means the third statement, explain why changes in option values are determined by numerous different risk factors and what VEGA determines. So each requirement is divided into 2 or 3 different sub requirements in one. That's why the marks has to be divided like that. Now, the reason why I'm taking you through this question is, even though it's theory, the reason why I'm doing is, I haven't included here, but you could read it. Examiner told that this is the worst question performed by candidates that time because they don't have the understanding of real options. So real option is something which you can expect for your exam. I got a real question in my exam, right? So you can expect it could be anything out of 4. But here you need to discuss 1 or 2 type of real options. You need to discuss in this question. It has been discussed in the answer. I will take you through, then you will know. So this is this question. Candidates have a poor knowledge. So make sure that you get the right knowledge, right, on real options. Real option is an area where candidates struggle a lot. Even though you understand working and all, you can use Black-Scholes model and find the value calculation, but still when it comes to explanation, when it comes to application, theory part, real option is tough. That's why I'm taking you through this. And also, this is how the marking scheme has been divided. The marking scheme has been divided like this. For part A, right, 7 to 8 marks for discussing how option can be used in project investment decision. 3 to 4 marks for explanations of the assumptions. Part B, it has been divided into 3 different sub requirements. Discussion how option is used to value equity. Second, how option is used to assess default risk. Third, how, okay, even okay, in spite of financial distress, how option is having an equity, positive equity values. That is because of time value. Option also has a time value. And part C, it is 2 to 3 marks for explanations of why option values are determined by so many risk factors. That means we are talking about other Greeks here, and why Vega affects the option value, right? And what Vega is basically. So this is how the marks has been divided. I'm just going to go through the answer. If you want, you can just go through your answer by yourself. But I thought this is for those candidates or students who have a lack of knowledge here. So while going through the answer, I can also explain you how it works, right? So first, part A, how it's going to be used in an investment question. So conventional, okay, conventional investment appraisal techniques such as net present value analysis often do not capture the full strategic benefit. So whenever you have to talk about benefit of option, how option can be used for investment appraisal, you have to give limitations of net present value. You have to give limitation of net present value. That's how you're going to start. There are 2 limitations of net present value. One is, what is it? That's your homework. Go and search for my textbook and comment me below in my channel. What are the 2 limitations of net present value? I'm not going to tell you the answer. So here, this is limitations of net present value. So this limitations of net present value are the advantages of options. That's why options are a useful tool for investment appraisal, right? What are those limitations? Let's see. They do not capture full strategic benefits of a project in terms of either features of a project that allow risk to be managed or features that allow that allow further follow-on gains to be made. So that means, let's say that there are some more gains that you can make in the future, but in net present value you cannot get it. But when you have an option, and when you exercise that option later in the future, you can have that benefit, follow-on benefits, right? Follow-on benefits. So that is one advantage. The other one is flexibility, right? For example, now they are giving an example also. A situation may exist where a project is easy to abandon or use assets that are easy to switch to another use if the project fails. This abandonment or redeployment option. So you have to mention about option type. What are the option type? There are 4 real options. So you need to name them when you're saying. Just saying real option, real option, real option will not give you marks. What is that real option? Give a name for that real option. Here it is abandonment or redeployment option, right? So these are types of real option, right? This option will add value to a project because it limits the project's downside risk. It limits the project's downside risk. That's why it will add value. You can, if you can see that this is a long answer, right? It's a one-page answer. Okay, so with this project, the company could negotiate a get out clause, which gives it right to sell the project back to the government. It has been highlighted in bold. This sentences needs to be there, these words. Sell the project back to the government at a later date at a pre-agreed price. Alternatively, it could build facilities in such a way that it can redeploy them to other activities or scale the production up or down more easily and at less cost. These options give the company the opportunity to step out of a project at a future date if uncertainties today become negative outcomes in the future. Another type of real option is option to delay. So this is the second type of real option. A project can be structured to allow a company to react to improved information about the prospects of the project, right? That means there's an option to delay. You're not exercising today. You're delaying. Why? Because the more you delay, the more aware you will be. You'll be getting some new information, new knowledge. So you can take advantage of this new knowledge if you have this option to delay, right? Let's say that a new market has arrived in the market, right? A new iPhone has arrived in a market, right? First, scenario one, you don't have an option to delay. You are forced to buy today. Either you buy today or you lose it. You lose the opportunity. You buy it today, you don't buy it. But in that situation, you don't have knowledge. You don't know how the mobile function is, how the mobile market is going to be, right? You don't know how it is. Because it takes some time for the market to get the reviews and everything. And on the other case, another scenario is you have 3 months to delay, right? You are saying that you will not buy today, you will buy maybe after 3 months. After you become more aware, you get more knowledge of the market and iPhone and all. So which one you will go for? You will go for that option. You will take that option. You are going to exercise that option. You are going to take up that option. Why? It's your wish whether you will exercise or not. But at least you will take the option. Today you are going to take up that option. Why? Because that option has more value now, right? Whenever some significant investment, rather than investing all in today, one time investment, it's better that you have an option to delay so that you can see how the market is reacting to that. You will be getting more recent knowledge information. You can react on that. So that's why this option to delay is there. So they are saying, that's why they are saying the project can be structured to allow a company to react to improved information. When you have this option to delay, you are getting you will be getting more better information. You will be better aware of the situation now about the prospects of the project by staggering the capital expenditure over a period of time instead of investing in one block at the start of the project. So you're not putting all the money at one time in one block. You are investing in separate stages, small amounts. Now just saying option to delay is this does not will not give you marks. You have to link this to the case study. You have to link this to the company, right? So in this situation which the company is considering, the initial exploration rights may give it the option to delay the decision of whether to undertake the extraction of oil or gas to a later date. So in that time, using previous knowledge and experience, it can estimate the quantity of oil and gas which is present more accurately. It can also use this knowledge to assess the variability of the likely quantity. The company may be able to negotiate a longer timescale with the government of Ireland for undertaking the initial exploration before it needs to make a final decision on whether and how to extract. Finally, some projects may create an option to expand into other areas using the benefit of the experience gained during the project. For example, the company can explore whether or not applying for the rights to undertake this exploration project could give it a priority in terms of future projects. Perhaps due to new knowledge or technology it builds during the current project. These opportunities would allow it to gain competitive advantage over rivals, which in turn could provide it with greater opportunities in the future but which are uncertain at present. the company can use the Black-Scholes option valuation formula to assess the value of any real option associated with the project. So you are using this for this. So to value, how are you going to value real option? There is no separate formula to value real option. You are using the formula which is there for the Black-Scholes model, Black-Scholes European call option. So this value can be added to the conventional net present value. Once you get the value of an option, real option, what you are doing? What are you going to do with that option? Add that with the net present value. So net present value plus real option. You're adding it. Right? To give a more accurate assessment of the project's value. That will be a more accurate picture of the project's value. Right? The option price formula we used with the investment decisions based on this model. This model makes a number of assumptions as follows. Because you are basing your real option valuation on this model, Black-Scholes model, you should also be aware of the limitations of the Black-Scholes model. We have covered this in question 11, but we are going to cover this again here. Right? We are going to cover this. So these are the four. Number one, they say that the option can be exercised only at specific point in time, like in European call option, but in reality it could be exercised at any time. For example, an option to redeploy. Second limitation is risk-free rate is known and is constant, which might not be the case, especially if the option takes a long term to expire. Third, most significant is that the estimation of the standard deviation. They assume that it is accurate and constant, right? Which may not be true, which may not be valid for the long-term projects. Fourth, that the underlying asset can be traded freely. Right? This is probably not accurate where the underlying asset is an investment project. Investment project cannot be traded easily. Right? So this assumptions mean that the value based around the model is indicative and not definitive. Right? Now let's go to the B part. B part, you have to say how it is going to value equity, how it is going to assess default risk, and also in spite of financial distress, how they are having a positive equity value. Three things you need to discuss in part B. So first we are going to say how firm can be valued using this. Okay, if the firm fails to generate enough, right? If the firm fails to generate enough value to repay its loan, then its value is equals to zero. Shareholders have the option to let the company die at this point. Second, however, all this are from your textbook. It's nothing new. It's just I feel it's copy paste only, right? However, if the firm does generate enough value, then the extra value belongs to the shareholder, and in this case, shareholders can pay off the debt. This is the exercise price and continue in their ownership of the company. Therefore, right? The Black-Scholes option pricing model. This is BSOP, means Black-Scholes option pricing model. That's the short form. So the BSOP model can be applied because shareholders have a call option on the business. Right? The protection of limited liability creates the same effect as a call option. Please try to understand this line when I'm saying. Protection of limited liability creates the same effect as a call option because there's an upside if the firm is successful, but shareholders lose nothing other than the initial investment if it fails. I will tell you why it has the same effect. For a limited liability company, what does a limited liability company means? Limited liability company means in case if you are losing, you will only lose, right? If a company is becoming bankrupt or something like that, the company is only going to lose their initial investment, right? The amount they have invested, only that capital they are going to lose. That's it. So they are protected. Same way, call option also, the maximum they can lose is their premium. That's it. Only their premium, not other than that. That's why they work in a similar way. So it can be assumed that the way the call option works, limited protection of limited liability. So that's why the call option can be used to assess the value of the limited liability company for this reason, right? Therefore, the firm, right? So the value of a company can be calculated as the amount that you would pay as a premium for this call option. The amount which you pay as a premium for this call option will be the value of the company. If at the expiry of the debt, the value of the company is greater than the face value of debt, then the option is in the money. It's clear. Whenever the company is greater than the value, option is in the money. And if it's the other way around, option is out of the money and equity is worthless. Prior to expiry of debt, that means before the debt, the call option, the value to the holders of Equity will also have a time value attached to it. Please make sure that there's a time value also before the expiry, right? Before the expiry of the debt, that call option has two value attached to it. One is the intrinsic value, the other one is time value. So the BSOP model can be used to assess the value of the option to the equity holders, the value of the equity which can consist of both time value and intrinsic value if the option is in the money, or just time value if the option is out of the money. This you need to understand. Please memorize it. Understand and then memorize. Don't just memorize. When an option has both time value and intrinsic value, option is in the money. When the option is out of the money, it only has time value, no intrinsic value. Within the model, ND1 is the delta value. Shows how the value of the equity changes when the value of the company asset changes. ND2. So we have done, right, calculations in the Black-Scholes models ND1 and ND2, but do we know what it means, the actual meaning of it? Here, this is the actual meaning of ND1. ND2 is, it is the probability that the call option will be in the money, have intrinsic value for the equity holders. So debt can be regarded as debt holders writing a put option on the company's assets, where the premium is the receipt of the interest, right? Because to the debt holders, what happens? You give interest, right? So that premium, they are going to receive that premium. Writing a put option, whenever you are writing a put option, you are getting the premium, right? So if you are getting the premium, that's like you are getting a receipt of interest, right? So where the premium is a receipt of interest when it falls due and the capital reduction. Because whenever you take a debt, you have to pay the capital, the amount of that loan, and also the interest. So the same way here. If ND2 dips the probability that the call option is in the money, then 1 minus ND dips the probability of default. 1 minus ND is probability of default. How? Because ND2 they are saying is probability that is in the money. Call option is in the money. They are saying ND2 is the probability that the option is in the money. So what will be the probability that the option will be default or out of the money? Like probability of default. Simply 1 minus ND2, because probability cannot be greater than 1. That's why. That's why it's 1 minus the probability of ND2. That's why it's 1 minus ND2. Probability cannot be greater than 1. That's why. So it is probability of default. Therefore, the model and options are useful in determining the value of equity and default risk. Now they are talking about the financial distress and the time value. So the option pricing can be used to explain why companies facing severe financial distress can still have positive equity values. A company facing severe financial distress would presumably be one where the equity holders call option is well out of the money. It's clear, right? When someone's a financial distress, it's clear that call option is out of the money and therefore has no intrinsic value. So when it's out of the money means no intrinsic value. Remember that. When an option has no intrinsic value, that option is out of the money. However, as long as the debt on the option is not at expiry, then that call option will still have a time value attached. This is very important now. Why? See, when an option expires, it will have no intrinsic value also, it will have no time value also. But before expiry, right? Before that expiry, there is some time. So the time value is there of that option, even though there is no intrinsic value. Therefore, they are saying as the debt on the option is not at expiry, when you are at expiry, there is no time value also. Where is that time? It is expiring. So before expiry, you always have that time value. So therefore, the positive equity value reflects the time value of the option, even when the option is out of the money. And this will diminish as the debt comes closer to expiry. Exactly. The more debt comes closer to expiry, the time value also reduces. The greater it is far away from the expiry date, that option will have a greater time value. So the time value indicates that even when the option is currently out of money, there's a possibility that due to volatility of the asset values, by the time the debt reaches maturity, the company will no longer face financial distress and will be able to meet its debt obligations. See, they're saying the last line means, what does it mean? Even though the option is currently out of money, right? But there's a chance that the option value, right? The asset value will increase, will change highly. There's a high volatility of asset values. It will keep going up and down. So because of that changes, right? How will it change? That volatility will not happen. Something does not change in a very short period of time. It takes time for that volatility to happen. So greater the time, more it will be volatile. It will keep changing, changing, changing. So that means it becomes more possible that a company can get out, can recover itself from that financial distress and repay its debt if it has a longer period of time. But if it has a less period of time, it will not change. The asset value will more or less remain the same, right? So by the time the debt reaches the maturity, that means towards the end, that volatility of asset values, right? The company will no longer face financial distress. Third one, we're going to talk about Vega and how the Greeks affect the option. So according to the Black-Scholes option pricing model, the value of an option is dependent on five variables. Value of an option is dependent on five variables. What are they? The value of underlying asset, the exercise price, the risk-free rate of return, the volatility of underlying asset, that is your standard deviation, and your time to expiry of the option. So these five variables are input into the Black-Scholes model. If you have seen that these five variables are also the five elements which are there in your Black-Scholes option pricing model, in order, right, to compute the value of a call or put option. The different risk factors determine the impact on the option value of the changes in the five variables. So if any of these five variable changes, your option value will change. And collectively, these are known as Greeks. So collectively, all the five elements together, exercise price, standard deviation, time, risk-free rate, value of underlying asset, together all these five components, it is known as Greeks. In the case of a call option, the option will be more valuable if, due to these two things. What are those two things? Exercise price is lower, right? See, just don't memorize that if exercise price is low, option will be more value. If exercise price is high, it will be low value. Don't memorize it because it's not effective. It will not work. Main thing is you should understand why this change is there. See, understand this. Exercise price is lower means what? Lower than what? Lower than the share price. If your exercise price is lower than your asset price or share price, whatever you want to call it, it is there's a high chance that a person will exercise that call option. Whenever you exercise a call option, only you can tell that option is of value or not like in the money or out of the money. So when an option is exercised, it will be in the money. So when will be that option will be exercised? When exercise price is lower than your share price, because call option is right to buy. Just see like this, call option is right to buy. You want to always buy at a lower price as a consumer. So when you want to buy at a lower price, whichever is giving a lower price, you will go and buy that. If your exercise price is lower, that means your option price, that means you will exercise the option. If you exercise the option, means your option is in the money, your option will be more valuable. Therefore, if your exercise price is lower in terms of call option, option is more valuable. Second reason, the value of the underlying asset, risk-free rate of interest, the volatility, the time value period is higher, right? So if you let's understand one by one component we'll try to understand. Value of underlying asset, if this is higher, they are saying all these components needs to be higher except the exercise price. So they are saying out of the five components, all the exercise price needs to be lower, the other four components needs to be higher for call option to be valuable. Out of those four components, the first one is value of underlying asset, that is your PA in your Black-Scholes model which you calculate. This has to be higher. Of course, if this is higher only, you will exercise the option because exercise price is lower. This is higher, you will not go and buy from there. It's a call option to buy. Always see from the buyer's perspective. You will not go and buy a higher price. So underlying asset is higher means you will not go and buy. You will exercise the option. So therefore that option is having a higher value. Second, risk-free rate of return. That's your R. Your risk-free rate of interest is high, right? So when your risk-free rate of interest is high, your option will be more valuable because input this in your Black-Scholes model and see. Right? Third, volatility, standard deviation. Standard deviation. Higher the standard deviation, higher the value. Why is that? Standard deviation means what? It's standard deviation means volatility, uncertainty. Higher the uncertainty, higher the value of an option. Because in terms of uncertain times, that option, you will want to exercise the option. Right? So that it increases the option value. Third, the time period. Greater the time, remember always, option value will be higher. So all the other four components needs to be high except exercise price. Now let's see how Vega will comes to the picture. What is Vega? So the Vega determines the sensitivity of an option's value to a change in the implied volatility of the underlying asset. It talks about volatility, Vega, variance or volatility. So just see the letter. Volatility, V, Vega. V, both are V, right? So this is how you change. Vega V stands for volatility. So change in volatility, option will change. So implied volatility is what the market is implying the volatility of the underlying asset will be in the future. The value of an option will rise as volatility increases. So just now we saw. Because it will increase the potential and extent to which an option may be in the money which will be benefit the option holder. But if an option is out of the money, it will simply not be exercised, and therefore if the extent to which an option is out of the money uh, rises, then it has no impact on the option holder. Therefore, as the Vega increases, so will be the value of the option. This you need to write as a conclusion at the end. Vega increase, that means volatility increase, option value of option will increase. So that's it for question 12. I hope now after going through this, you will have a better understanding of real options. Hope so, and you should have. You should understand the theory part of it also, right? So that's it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like, comment, and share. Thank you, and stay well.